Javier Molina, and I directed Wonder.
Francisco Solorzano, I directed Floating Sunflowers, and Christopher Whalen's in the house. I don't know if Jason is here. I don't think he is. Right? Oh, okay.
Yeah, hi, I'm Mark Borkowski. I wrote and directed Hungry Ghost. We have three cast members in the house. We have Umbrella, Depooreal. We got Giordano. And then we got the Kitchen, who was our lead actor.
Hi, I'm DeSimone, the writer and director for Full Throttle We have a few people in the film. We have Robert Finaro. And we have Vince Maritato. We have CJ Gelfand, who plays Grace. It's hard to see these lights. And we have Charles Cassano, who plays Gregory. And Karen Giordano, of course. And we have George Gibson, the wonderful cinematographer.
Did we forget anybody? If we did, I'm terribly sorry. We are so lucky to have all these talented filmmakers here, and I also, you know, if you make more movies that were not screened tonight, please let me know, because I like to put them in the festival end of May. So I first wanted to start with like a round, if you can maybe tell us what inspired you to write that. Also maybe your writers here, but what inspired you to make the movie? Should we start with Nick DeSimone?
Sure. I have no idea. I have no idea. I just sit down and I write. And, you know, I write and then I rewrite and then I rewrite and I base things on my life and people that I know. And I just get these ideas and I write them and I rewrite them. And I'm lucky enough to have these great actors to say the words.
Thank you. Wonder?
Well, I think I was raised by a single mom, so I got some dad issues. And Gabriel was the same way. Gabriel, he got daddy issues, and he called me one day. He got back from Ireland. He comes up to me, he's like, I got to make short film. I was in Ireland and I stopped at this gas station and I saw this father come out the gas station with his son, and his son was dressed like a girl. And I just started to cry because that's real love. That's the kind of father I want to be. And I got emotional, and then we just knew that like we had to develop that into something that that kind of addressed toxic masculinity and what it is to like love your children unconditionally and be willing to go against like the way you were domesticated or your own beliefs to allow them to be who they genuinely, organically, and beautifully are.
Yeah, brings that brings us very organically to the next movie, because life inspires art there.
Yeah.
How we had come up with the idea of this movie.
It was so long ago, but I founded a theater company with a bunch of other Brooklyn College alums. At the time that we made the film, I think the company was about 15 years old, and we wanted to branch out of theater, and we were collaborating with a lot of filmmakers Jason was one of them. He wrote the screenplay and he brought it to me. Anna, who was part of the company, just shot the first season of Veep, so we had a feeling. Everyone knew like she's going to be harder to collaborate with because of her schedule after that. And we decided to come together and we wanted to tell a story that was about friendship, relationships, and a real love letter to New York and all of the locations of where our ensemble had played, basically our playground. Cherry Lane was like one of the major featured locations, interior and exterior. And it was our first attempt at producing film, so for us, it was more of a technical risk. We felt pretty solid with Jason's script and the cast, and then we just have been making mostly films since then.
Great.
Well, I wanted to make a film at the height of the opioid crisis, particularly how it affected my old neighborhood in Philadelphia. My old neighborhood was considered ground zero for the crisis in America. And I met David, who's here, he played the lead, and he wanted to make a short film, so I went into the war zone with him and we created this story around it. So, that's how it worked.
Were those background actors?
Well, it was a mixture. Because on Kensington Avenue, where we shot in Philadelphia, it was like a drug encampment zone. It's like a mile where addicts could do anything they want. They could shoot up. They could do whatever they want, you know. And my crew did not want to go there because it was pretty dangerous. Even though David jumped out of the van and he started walking around with everybody. And my crew did pretty much an intervention with me. They said, look, we're not going out there, it's very dangerous, we're going to have equipment stolen, Mark, we can't do it. So my DP got a van, and he bolted down the area in the van, we opened up the side door and we drove by. And then David jumped out and he was with them. Now, a mile down the road, it was a safer area, and we had all these guys from recovery houses and halfway houses, you know, wanted to be of service to the film. They had like 10, 15 days sobriety. So, you know, they were still looking the part. And those were the guys that David was really interacting with and dealing with them. So we managed to mix the real stuff with the relatively staged stuff. Yeah.
I noticed, sorry, moving on the Immigrant music, that was also really nice. What's that?
He's here in spirit.
He's here in spirit.
Oh, he's here in spirit.
He's the Holy
Yeah, right.
Oh, the music is so nice in that print.
Charlie composed that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I heard I watched some other version on Criterion or HBO Max, and the music was totally different. This is so much better.
Yeah.
So the music in everybody's movies tonight they were all really solid and really good. I was just curious about your sources, or maybe you could start there.
A friend of mine, he's wonderfully talented. His name is Joe Ferrara, and he wrote the music for my film. We worked together on it. He has a lot of patience that drove him crazy. He would come back with something and say, "That's not quite right for this," and he'd go back. And, you know, he's a real trooper, and he nailed it. He just nailed each musical selection. Joe Ferrara. He's supposed to be here tonight, but he's coming from Pennsylvania, so he'll be at the next screening.
I always, like, I choose a piece of music when I'm starting to, like, start my visualization of what I want to see on the screen. And there's this meditation at Insight Time. I have this nice, so they basically inspired the music. There's this piano track in there that I would listen to, like, for months at a time, and I shared that with Alex Sincox, who did the music, and he listened to it, and it's kind of music that reminds my inner child that we're safe, you know what I mean? And so that was the inspiration, and the hardest part was probably like the montage, because we wanted this thing with like drums and kind of like ancestral, but not going that deep with it, you know, with a happy tone to it, but, what he came back was so much better than what I had in my head, so all credit goes to Alex Sincock.
We had a music supervisor who gave me probably like 50 tracks of albums and musicians that he had access to that we could use royalty free. So we took advantage, I think, of like 2 songs from that. And then at the time, we had my producing partner and I, Chris Whalen, were going back and forth a lot with in LA. And there was a band, The Public Trust. I don't think they're still together, but that's the track at the end and at the opening. They gave us their songs to use, but the score was built earlier on with our composer, Jonathan Byram. His family all come from, they're just a family of musicians, and we talked about story from the very beginning, and then just try to come from an organic place with what the subtext or what the characters were feeling in any given moment, and then we just built it that way.
It's so expensive to get the rights to the songs you want. You know, I had 2 songs that I really wanted, 2 songs, one at the end and whatnot, and we couldn't afford them. So my music supervisor presented me with a couple pieces, and I found the one at the end, the song at the end, and I asked them if we could get it, and we got it for a reasonable price. You know, but the music in the film that was operatic, where you were ooh, all that stuff. I kind of stumbled on that. I was like researching like music like that, Baroquean music, and I stumbled across this stuff. And just like Javi, I kept listening to it and it helped me work on the piece itself. You know, it had that ghostly element, and it was so inexpensive to get because nobody ever heard of it. You know what I mean? It was from some company in Greece, and we got the tune that we used for like $100. It was amazing. You know, and the woman who did all that stuff, Patricia Rosario, great opera singer, she's a big fan of the piece and she stays in touch. And it was just, it was a perfect storm like that. It was really beautiful.
I did want to say one more thing. We're going to open it up to audience questions, but you can see why we need a new projector. If you saw, because all these movies were beautifully shot. Like I watched them all before, and just our projector just does not give it justice. So, yay, we're going to get a projector. So that's so much better. Yeah.
I wanted to ask Nick something. That condition of sucking an old lady.
How did I come up with it? How did I come up with it? I just talked to my Bruno. It just, I walk a lot on the street and I pick these ideas and I filed them away in a book. And the original title of the piece was Sucking Fat. And I told my parents that title and they said, no, you cannot name your film that. So I came up with this other title. But yeah, what was the original question? How did I come up with it? Things pop into my head.
We want to see if there's anybody in the audience who has a burning question. There, for you.
Quick question for Nick. It feels like it's bigger than it is Full Throttle Paradise. Is it, was it shot as a pilot or as a proof of concept or something like that? Because it does feel like an Almodovarian like trilogy, to say the least.
That's an excellent question. When I was writing the script, I thought, well, maybe this could be an episodic thing, or I think it could be the start of something. So yeah, there's a possibility that it could lead to something else. A part 2, a part 3, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so there's a possibility, and I'm open to it.
But it was not your goal when you started working on it?
It wasn't my goal, but as I was working on it, I thought, well, maybe this could continue in some form. But the original thing was, let's just make this piece. And then as I'm editing it, I'm thinking, oh, well, this could be an interesting thing that could continue.
Okay, so.
Back here.
Questions?
Back
There's
here?
somebody back
In the
here.
Yeah, actually, I can't bring the mic back, but. yeah.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, to sort of follow up on Nick's answer, I just wanted to ask how the filmmakers decided to, you talked about how you got the idea, but how did you decide to end your particular stories? When again, how you decided to end it? And
That's for everybody?
everybody.
I'll go. I get that a lot. We get a lot of pushback on the way we ended our film, because of the word used at the end. And one of the things is, man. So there's a crazy stat that really affected me, right? It said over 50% of trans youth who don't have family support attempt suicide. Man, that's heartbreaking, right? And then if you do get family support, that's only half the battle, maybe. Because you still gotta go out there in society and deal with the ignorance of most of the world, man. And I wanted people to understand that this didn't, yes, we had a happy ending because the father decided to stand by his son, but he's still got a fight ahead of him. He still, or she still has a fight ahead of her, right? Because in some environments, we're bred to be mean. I come from a very toxic environment where it's like survival of the fittest, and people prey on anything that's different, and they attack it, they're afraid. And so I know it's a heavy word, and as an artist now looking back, I'm like, artistically, maybe I would have chosen a different word that could have the same impact. But the fact that people walk away offended, well, imagine what it is to live in that person's shoes. You know? That's why I did that.
Yes, Francisco.
Originally, Jason had written that they were in the subway and they were across platforms, and we tried that. And of course, with Anna being present, we just could feel the environment just getting a little too claustrophobic, and we didn't get permits to shoot in the MTA. I mean, God bless anyone who can afford that. So we didn't know what we were gonna do, and we decided, it was pouring up upstairs, it was raining, and so we just decided, I called it, I said, let's just run upstairs quickly and do a bus stop, which Jason and I had talked about being a potential alternate earlier on. And as we did that, we saw that the skies had cleared and it was turning into that beautiful Manhattan edge, and that shot was the first take of us kind of just working at it, crossing each other's path. And then essentially what Jason wanted to do was that the ending was actually the beginning, because it was his first 10 minutes of a feature he had developed. So the ending was Jason's beginning to that story.
Yeah, in my original draft, he leaves and she doesn't come back. We're shooting the step and she just doesn't appear with no credits. And then as we were shooting, I had her enter back on because I thought it would be interesting. As soon as he surrendered and decided to go with his kid and let go of this madness, as soon as he left and surrendered, she shows up. And I also wanted to put some element of hope in there too, at the end where maybe there's a possibility, since the audience sees it, that they could reconcile or something, Because when I originally wrote this piece, I wrote it about an addict. It was all about an addict. But as I was working on it, I've been working with addiction and recovery and different aspects of that. And I started to deal with the families, and think about the families of people who are missing, people who are waiting for that phone call, people, who died. And I decided to make the film about them and put the addicts in the peripheral. So in doing that, I just, there weren't many various endings I had. There were only like a couple, and I was able to shoot them both. So that was pretty good.
originally my story took place in a catering hall, and then I came up with the idea of placing it in a motorcycle garage, because I thought that just opens up lots of fun visual opportunities. And then I thought, and the story ended inside, but then I kept expanding it where, okay, we go outside, and then they get on the motorcycle, and then they ride off. So I just wanted to have a big motorcycle ending, which is something that you don't see a lot in these films.